Burt Reynolds entered what became his last interview. Nobody in room imagined what was coming. It initially felt normal. Lights, cameras, small chat. Then something changed. His longtime co-workers quieted very immediately, though they sensed change before he even spoke. For one moment, the undoubtedly confident Burt the famous Reynolds resigned, and no fan let his guard down like him had ever seen. What he said after trapped with all listeners and forever altered their memories. Early life, work. Burt Burton Leon Reynolds was born Jr. to Burton on February 11, 1936. Harriet Fern and Milo Reynolds Sr. Reynolds into a mobile family much due to his father's military career. Had Dutch, English, Irish, Scottish ancestry. Burt often claimed Cherokee, with Italian ancestry, thus weren't documented properly. Even his birthplace was disputed. For years, he claimed Warehouse birth, Georgia, but then admitted born in Lansing, Michigan. Family lived before Father Army draftee. When his dad served at Fort Leonard Wood, the family lived in Missouri. 2 years. As his father served while in Europe, Burt's mother, his sister lived with relatives in Lake City, Michigan. In 1946, the Reynolds family moved to Riviera. Burt's hometown, Beach, Florida, made close pals and got the nickname Buddy. Later, his father became police chief of the city. In high school, Burt excelled naturally. Athlete. He attended Palm Beach High. Excelled in football, gaining state recognition. Colleges noticed, and despite his first scholarship by the finally, he chose Miami University, Florida State University. His position was halfback. Even roomed with Lee Corso, a later renowned football coach, sports analyst. But Burt's desire off football career ended quickly. First shoulder injury in his first season, then 1955 knee injury. And he hoped to recover, but a horrific vehicle accident hurt him. His knee was damaged at 19. Internally injured, an entirely changing future. He attempted returning to football, but realized fast could never play the same again. Still emotionally and physically, Burt joined Palm after recovering. Beach Junior College. An English Watson B. Duncan III, professor, asked him to audition for school play because he enjoyed how Burt recited Shakespeare in class. That instant altered everything. He performed well enough to receive a Best Actor, received summer theater scholarship. He discovered acting and never considered before. His youth acting career was lacking glamour and flash. He waited tables, dishwasher, bouncer, took any job he could chasing roles. He shrank. Late 1950s television roles. He finally got his break, Riverboat on TV. However, duetto his disputes with the primary actor and producers, Burt didn't last long on the show, which hurt his Hollywood image. Still, he persisted. He made many guest appearances on major shows over time, garnering recognition. He broke through in 1962. Played Gunsmoke's Quint Asper. Burt later mentioned these some of his best years life. Career progressed from there. Up and down, but his charm, humor, and determination always pulled him forward. Well, before he was a film, the mythology Burt Reynolds was merely a young man with broken dreams only for life to propel him his destiny's career. Burt Reynolds' personal life. When Burt Reynolds' college roommate Lee Corso joked about how handsome Burt was, he said he was so gorgeous he virtually using him as bait. According to Corso, Burt could cross campus to bring 2 girls, one beautiful and one less impressive. Corso would gladly accept 2, even less attractive girls. Corso laughed. Were still much more gorgeous than anyone he could get by himself. One of the first indicators Burt's charm wasn't real Hollywood taught him later. It was he was himself. With regards to Burt had a love life dramatized as any film starred in. His first marriage, Best English Actress Judy Kahn. She worked on Rowan and Martin's Laughs. They married in 1963, but the marriage ended. 2 years. Burt later confessed that was too young and concentrated on his rising career to marry work then. After that, Hasha lived with actress Miko Miyama in 1968 to 1971, during when he became more visible in movies and TV. But his next relationship became a Hollywood headline. In 1971, Burt started dating TV and singer personality Dina Shaw, 20, his superior. Age difference sent many people felt shock waves, although Burt didn't care. Relationship 4 years, and he always spoke nicely of her. He often said Denina was the first woman who truly moved him, anchored and aware. About midway, Burt briefly dated country in 1970s music legend Tammy Wynette, though that relationship ended long. What Burt did next described as his greatest love tale life, Sally Field. Together, they from 1976 to 1980 and then off until 1982. They starred in 4 films and became one of on-screen favorite of Hollywood off-screen couples. Even decades later, Burt admitted in a 2016 interview that I loved Sally Field. Many were surprised by his disclosure. A second marriage followed in 1988. He married actress Lonnie Anderson, a famous television star at the period. Quentin was their son, but the marriage soured when Burt fell for APAM, cocktail waitress Seals. A mess ensued. Breakup, public allegations, and ultimately settled lawsuits privately. Their 1994 divorce marked one of Burt's most stressful times chapters. Life of Burt Reynolds, passionate, heartbreaking, and memorable bonds, each one marking him and his legacy. Burt Reynolds, Afterlife Hollywood. Burt Reynolds was more. Movie star. He lived several lives. Lives beyond the glittering arc lighting, exploring fields off-heater, restaurants, and sports. He had major legitimate interests, and each side business showed a part of him. American footballer, Reynolds enthusiast from the start. He once volunteered to Johnny Carson, sacrificed his Oscar hopes for an NFL spot. That catapulted him to team ownership. He owned a minority stake in Tampa Bay Bandits, a current team, 1982. 1984 USFL ended 1986. He even influenced the team's name. Cheeky reference to his famous film trilogy, Smokey Yaki and the Bandit, with Skull Bandit, his racing game sponsors back then. But football wasn't his only athletic excursion. Reynolds joined with his close buddy, long-standing collaborator, Hal Needham, to NASCAR Winston Cup co-owner series team M1 Racing. Their automobile, Skull Bandit 33, was piloted by Harry Gant and carried same raw vigor mini associate with Burt's television character. Another example of Reynolds' combined personal interests with business. His entrepreneurial spirit pulled him into the restaurant world. He opened in late 1970s nightclub-style Burt's Place restaurant in Omni International downtown Atlanta complex. Although the place closed after a year, Dangers Reynolds was willing to explore new avenues. The idea was so appealing that he even named a building at his Florida home Burt's Place. Yet one of his biggest non-film achievements was Burt Reynolds' Jupiter, Florida Dinner Theater. Opening in 1979, this wasn't merely business. A passion project. Reynolds built the theater for instruction and inspire young performers who wanted a showbiz career business. Local actors, newcomers, all students found possibilities there. Stage. It happened eventually. Named Burt Reynolds' Jupiter Theater remained active under his leadership till 1989. After renting and leaving aside, his presence remained with venue. Structure later transformed into Molt's Jupiter Theater. Still operating as famous Performing Arts Center, Reynolds tried Southern cuisine. For it was opened in 1984. Lauderdale restaurant Burt and Jack and partner Jack Jackson. It shuttered, but added another credit to his long list creative work. Informally partnered with Buddy Clinpoof Folks restaurant investment Southern Homestyle chain kitchens. The idea was cute, but the enterprises failed. And neither did their later investment, yet another Southern-style chain of eateries. While not all Reynolds' endeavors proved successful, each unique his curiosity, creativity, and ready to experience life beyond movies. He wasn't hesitant to pursue his passions on the field, road, and the kitchen, and that's part what made him memorable. His financial problems and decline followed. Although Burt Reynolds was formerly Hollywood's highest-paid stars, making $10 million annually, approximately $48 at his peak million today, money seems to slide through his fingers faster than he could succeed. A large portion of concern was that despite his charm talent, Reynolds wasn't a good businessman. It was his habit. Hard investment instead with his intellect, and choices eventually caught him. One of his biggest financial errors resulting from collaboration with music executive Buddy Clinpoof, who also produced his 1973 album, Ask Me What I Am. Both invested in Folks, Southern chain restaurant after a Bill Anderson song. It didn't understand. In place of backpedaling, they doubled down. Invest in another chain. Daisy's Diner fared well and know better. The hardest thing, Reynolds invested his money away, personal funds, not a firm. So, as eateries failed, Reynolds was left to digest everything. Financial setback. Overall, these failed. Eateries would cost $20 million, a blow that would reduce his wealth drown almost anyone. Things further difficult following his hit TV show Evening Shade ended. His career cooled and the timing was terrible. At the simultaneously, his disheveled and very public divorce from Lonnie Anderson became tabloid obsession. Between attorney expenses, child support, alimony, acting opportunities decreasing, Reynolds' finances were dwindling at startling speed. In the mid-1990s, run out of money. Then came another blow. The same CBS in 1996 Evening Shade Network sued Reynolds for not repaying $3.7 million loan. Due to tremendous debt with debt mounting and income falling, he forced to file Chapter 11 bankruptcy. He admitted this combination of his costly lifestyle, his hefty expenses divorce, and restaurant failure investments. He listed $6.65 million assets during bankruptcy paperwork, but over $11 million in debt. The numbers showed he was financially troubled. Still, after 2 long years, he succeeded to rescue himself from bankruptcy, steadily rebuild. Troubles did not end, stop there. On August 16, 2011, Milan foreclosure papers, Lynch claimed Reynolds owes $1.2 million on his Hope Sound, Florida house. That sad reminder of money issues followed him long after his movie star days. He lost two finest assets, the Burt Reynolds Ranch, full with memories including Smokey Key and the bandit filming locations. During bankruptcy, it sold. In 2014, the land was rezoned for residential development. Locals sold to Kovnanian Homeschool District bought. Albert Reynolds' complete financial story was fame, risk-taking, terrible luck, lousy choices. A reminder that even the biggest stars' health can suffer behind-the-scenes hardships, injuries. Late Burt Reynolds spent playing tough for most of his career. Brave people. Behind the scenes, however, his body continuously paid the cost. Health issues plagued him issues throughout his life. Several was upfront about, particularly during his visits to The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. In those interviews, Reynolds said he grappled with hypoglycemia, low blood sugar drops too low. Even revealed his anxiety to supporters would have never guessed viewing him confidence on screen. How many? Nobody knew Burton's wealth tested his body. His early life worked with stuntmen throughout his career. He even considered himself one that he proudly carried a card at the Stunt Performers Guild and accomplished much his own stunts, sometimes more he should. Because of that devotion, Stuntmen's Association Movies honored him in 2015 with Richard Diamond Farnsworth Award honoring a stuntman successfully changed into acting. Reynolds frequently highlighted how award was noteworthy because recognized his career portion cared profoundly. He did it himself. Stunts has consequences. The 1972 film Deliverance included him. Famously crossed a waterfall. A stunt even professionals deemed dangerous. Reynolds demanded it. Himself. The result? He hurt himself. Tailbone. Coccyx. A wound which hurt him for years. In another, the man who loved kata combat scenario went wrong while dancing that made him need hernia surgery. But none of those injuries compared to the set of 1984 City Heat. Reynolds began filming on day one that inadvertently hit in the face with chairs made of metal. A strike produced temporal jaw joint dysfunction, unpleasant health issue jaw. Not being able to chew solids, he lived on liquid food. Diet. He shed 30 pounds. Spread tales of his terrible sickness. Constant discomfort prompted medication, painkillers, and Reynolds struggled with addiction. Years-long fight. His growth aged, his long-term repercussions and heavy lifestyle caught up with him. Back surgery in 2009 surgery, the latest reminder wear and tear he experienced body through. A few months later, he had quintuple in February 2010. Major heart surgery, coronary bypass surgery, he subsequently said gave him second chance. Through injuries, surgeries, Reynolds worked despite health issues that kept popping up with same charm his followers loved. His health issues reminded Medhat even the strongest stars hurt never seen by public. That Burt Reynolds worked harder than never realized. Burt Reynolds' final days. Burt Reynolds died on September 6, 2018, from the heart Jupiter attack. Florida Jupiter Medical Center. At the news shook Hollywood and his hard global fan base. Despite multiple ups and downs, Burt was loved throughout his career. That work influenced film for decades. Television. 2 weeks following his death, his ex-wife Lonnie Anderson and son Quentin private memorial service for him North Palm Beach, Florida on September 20th. There was intimacy gathering, but full of folks who had great significance for Reynolds' life. Present at events Sally Field, whom he characterized as his lifelong love, Hall of FSU legend Bobby Bowden, old acquaintance quarterback Doug Flutie, with Lee Corso, a man said farewell quietly. Lived beneath dazzling lights. Reynolds was cremated. He gave his niece Nancy Lee ashes, his longtime friend Brown Hesto. Late February 11th, he was buried in Hollywood in 2021. Resting in Forever Cemetery. Famous stars. That September, A.A. Braun's Burt Reynolds bust was installed. Fans still visit this tribute. When he died, Antenna TV aired a 1982 Tribute Tonight Show episode starring Johnny Carson's entertaining Burt skit Your Lifestyle Sector. It was that warm recollection of his frequent illumination how much joy Carson's stage bring she brought by himself. The Atlanta media also considered how Reynolds changed Georgia into important filming location. He was one of the first famous stars to shoot significant movies there, and huge success those ones. Georgia is now a major American film hub. Reynolds sparked that movement. Even his beloved Florida SSU football did their thing, honoring him. For the remainder in 2018, players wore helmets. Band 1 decals, stylized resembles the license plate from the legendary Smokey, and the Trans Am Bandit with Bird's autograph. It was a simple, yet meaningful act poignant for the man who had always backed them. His niece Nancy lives in 2020. Lee Hess documentary biography, I Am Burt Reynolds, showing fans in Sadit his true self off-screen. In terms, Burt Reynolds was more than a film star. He symbolized traditional American manhood. Critics frequently called him easily attractive, fun, and magnetic. His early roles focused on confident, funny, and physical. Later in his career, he surprised those who felt they knew him deeper, heartfelt depth performances of his life experiences. Actor Michael Chiklis mentioned Burt Reynolds aid preserve his career. After Chiklis played John Belushi in 1989's Wired blacklisted in poor Hollywood job prospects, Reynolds recognized the emotion that being pushed aside after seeing challenged himself growing up during McCarthyism. Seeing Chiklis's potential promise, Reynolds cast him in the TV show BL Striker, allowing him to rebuild career. This action revealed a side Reynolds that went beyond charm moviegoers witnessed audacity. And it's simply a Hollywood legend famous for movies, stunts, or style that he also cared people. Their problems, their chances, he left a mark by supporting Chiklis through films and warmth and guidance. Burt Reynolds' legacy blends talent, genuine compassion, and confidence. A combo that will generational. Last words of Burt Reynolds. In March 2018, months before his death, Burt Reynolds appeared on Today A Hoda Cop By show to promote his film, The Last Movie Star. What began like a light-hearted discussion show moment changed surprisingly emotional. After Cop By, who was his lifelong love, Reynolds acted immediately. Sally? He meaning his ex-co-star Sally Field lengthy on-off love. Hess stated, she was, well, she is still. Wanted her badly for Smokey. They said, well, she's not sexy. Oh, you don't understand. Talent is sexy. A widely documented moment Entertainment Tonight, and he was formerly independent confident. Joking, huge the famous star sounded softer, sentimental, and more he seemed more vulnerable, showed people the genuine Burt Reynolds, the charismatic man swagger. Few months later, Reynolds died of heart attack. September 6, 2018 in Jupiter, Florida at 82. Reported CBS News timeliness made the difference interview more emotional for those who, having followed his lengthy path difficult trek through fame, touched fans with its honesty. Was known for tough guy roles and confidence in trademarks. Reynolds suddenly sounded thoughtful. Being human and loving Sally Field, so openly surprised decades after their separation, many viewers found it honest. Alone created the moment unforgettable for adults. Observing him, the interview was odd bittersweet. A mix of nostalgia, vulnerability, and quiet longing. No public proof exists that he had appeared on Today and sobbed. In fact, some publications later suggested that some of his comments sounding perplexed, including when he joked about falling for Sally Field. She was 7 as slip. Corrected per The Independent. Emotional effect didn't come. It came from tears, the tone of his voice, how thoughts wandered, and honestly that passed between soon before his death. In 2018, Reynolds told a reporter, "No more regrets. Quote from Business Insider that a man who had endured much highs, painful mistakes, broken relationship, and financial issues, where victories were recorded relation to those, it was surprising peace. That final interview revealed a man living lovingly, passionately, silently regrets. For many viewers, that moment wasn't about Hollywood or fame. Anything that witnessing someone finally confess live quietly and simply only honesty without defenses was enough to wipe out viewers away tears. What makes Burt Reynolds' narrative so profound isn't just film he made or gained popularity. He was fundamentally a man who lived fearlessly, loved deeply, eventually spoke truthfully. Swagger is how many remember him. Charisma, chase scenes, and chuckles. However, his later years remind us of nothing else. Underneath the bravado, a real person had hopes, regrets, love, and weaknesses. The last Burt interview didn't feel special. Publicity, instead of a goodbye speech or stunt, felt like one last realization, quiet confession from a fatigued man. Didn't wear masks that need to act or pretend untouchable. To all who heard him, was innately human, to show that even the biggest stars we want to be real someday generally believe actors' stories end when credits roll or fade renown. But Burt's life explains that the story continues off camera, off headlines, and honest, memorable moments. Contemplation. Fame, money may fade. Failure, life may grow complex, but love stays. Regret, self-awareness, vulnerability exists everywhere. Remember Burt. Remember the who once lived beyond the movies, pursued football goals. The one who discovered acting. Blunders cost him much, but never stopped trying. The heartbroken he waited before speaking. Final interview was flawed, have been awkward and ambiguous. But it was real for many. Burt was satisfied. Reynolds' life was chaotic, sometimes distressing, surprising, but also passionate, funny, and surprising. Mercy. Success doesn't ensure happiness, but honesty can bring. He demonstrated redemption. But vulnerability isn't weakness. If someone asks you today, who was Burt Reynolds? Don't just imagine movies, mustaches, or a man who performed stunts. Near the end, still trusted love, carried regret, and still cared to speak from the we may find heart in that. Anything personal, poor, trying, desiring, and finally honest. Burt's done. Reynolds' remarkable life and final moments, memorable memories. If this in-depth career examination, love, regrets, and humanity. Hit that like and subscribe for more beyond screen stories. Share your fave below. Love Burt Reynolds' memory or film. To hear from you. And never miss alerts. Missed another behind-the-scenes glimpse Hollywood legends. Stay tuned and thanks for watching. The next.